All right, we move further from here. The high-stakes U.S. presidential race between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris takes center stage, sparking reactions across Asia-Pacific markets.
Now, with both leadership and congressional control up for grabs, global investors are focused on the potential shifts in U.S. trade tax and economic policies that could impact international markets.
Japan's Nikkei is leading gains in Asia as experts place recovery hopes on Japan's reliance on U.S. economic direction. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down with concerns that potential tariffs on Chinese firms could pressure earnings for those listed in Hong Kong. The possibility of weakness in Chinese markets has helped Indian stocks stage a relief rally over the last few days. Indian stocks opened higher today and continue to gain as tech stocks emerge as market leaders today. Australia's main indexes are also reflecting upbeat sentiment following Wall Street's gains. Experts suggest that a clear US election outcome could bring stability to markets, while a prolonged race might lead to more restrained movements across Asia.
All right, so we have been bringing you the early voting trends. Right now, in the latest that has just come in, it's a win for Kamala Harris in California. That's 54 electoral college votes, and Washington, both reliably blue states. So no surprises there. We, of course, are looking at the swing states. That's really what it's down to at the moment. Currently, from what we can see, all swing states, it's the reds that are leading, except for Nevada. The voting's yet to begin there. So we're really waiting in to see how that changes. We've seen a lot of pivot in these states as well, but at the moment, they're all in the red. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Daniel Geltrud, American business analyst and economist live from New Jersey. Welcome to the broadcast, sir. Also, we're being joined by Mr. Ajay Bagga, market expert. He's joining us from Mumbai, India. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Geltrud, I'd like to start with you. What is your take on the market trends so far?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets because, as we've been talking about, this race is so close, we really don't know which way it's going to go at this point in time. But the interesting part here is that we have two candidates with completely different visions for the United States, specifically economic. If we just look at this at the surface, Donald Trump is looking at tax cuts specifically related to corporate tax cuts. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, looking to increase tax rates for corporation. And that's just scratching the surface. So we have two completely different economic views here. And depending on who wins here, the country is going to go in a different direction.
Mr. Geltrud, stay with us. I'll just like to now come to Mr. Bagga. Thank you so much for joining us right here on WION. Sir, do you feel, can we expect markets to rally once the result is clear? Will the presidential result be a positive risk event?
Yeah, definitely. You know, the uncertainty goes out to a large extent. And, as Daniel was mentioning, Trump is less regulation, less tax, more, pro-corporates. Kamala Harris, her economic policy is more to help the U.S. consumer and the U.S. middle classes. So overall, both will be a little isolationist, both will be protectionist, both will be anti-globalization, and both will be anti-China. Will India also get impacted to some extent? But overall, the Republicans are better partners for India. But the last 4 years of Democrat president administration have not been too bad either. So India is seen as a special ally, as a strategic ally, and India will benefit from either of the two. But normally, what we have seen is that the Republicans tend to be more pro-India than the Democrats.
All right. Now, Daniel, just coming back to you right now, you know, taxes, inflation, economy. This is a big issue on the agenda. We know what their policies are. Economy, I believe, is somewhere where Kamala Harris has said that her day one priority would be to reduce food and housing costs for the working families. That's really a sticking point there. And with that, we also see that there's a jump in Trump trades in early Asia market trends. What are these moves suggesting on the vote outcome?
Well, when we look at what the potential outcome here is, where Kamala Harris has had some issues is she has been in office these last 4 years, and inflation has really stung the Americans. And I think where it comes to Donald Trump, he's saying, well, when I was in office, we had a much better economy and we didn't have this type of inflation. So again, if the world markets are looking at a potential return to office for Donald Trump, economically, it is probably more favorable to the United States as well as worldwide markets.
Mr. Bagga, you mentioned this briefly in your earlier response. I wanted to just get further thoughts of yours on this. How do you feel the Indian markets are going to respond to the eventual outcome?
Yeah, the emerging market flows depend a lot on the US interest rates and the strength of the dollar. Today, what we are seeing, US rates are going up. The yields on the US treasuries are up in Asian trading. The dollar is up to its high of July. And it's basically a Trump trade that US, which has a very high fiscal deficit, and both Kamala Harris and Trump don't have a path to reduce that fiscal deficit. In fact, there'll be more expenditure under Trump. So the Fed will not be able to cut rates as fast as the markets are anticipating. The RBI will have to protect the rupee if the dollar goes too strong. Today we have seen Bank Indonesia come up and say we will protect the rupiah. The RBI does not formally intervene, but informally we see that through the public sector banks they step in. And China, the big question mark. The Chinese 14th Standing Committee meeting is on. They come out on Friday with their pronouncements, expect a big stimulus from China, and their first reaction to a Trump presidency will be depreciation of the currency. That's what they did in 2016, and that will bring down all the export currencies down. We have seen the Mexican peso already being hurt, the Mexican stock market being hurt, with a probability of a Trump presidency. So India will be on par with these emerging markets, but overall the uncertainty going out will help the Indian markets.
Mr. Bagga, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on WION. Pleasure speaking with you. Mr. Geltrud, I'd like to now come back to you. You know, even up till yesterday, betting markets were favoring Trump over Harris. Any thoughts that you would have on why this was so?
Well, it seemed as if towards the end of the campaign that Donald Trump was having more momentum than Kamala Harris. And if you look at where the betting markets are, where we are right now, and I just want to say this could go either way, but the betting markets are really in favor of Donald Trump. And I think that's because he is performing better than expected, by some at least, in these swing states. Because where we are right now, it doesn't matter about California, New York, and so many other states. It really comes down to 6 or 7 states, and those races are going to be tight, and that's what's going to determine who the next president of the United States is.
Mr. Geltrud, you've mentioned this a few times, and this is something we were discussing amongst each other in the studio, that it still remains a neck-to-neck race. I wanted to understand from you your reasons for calling it a neck-to-neck race even now, even though you see more of red than you see blue at this point. But is it only on the basis of the swing states where it is still a close call race, because of which you're still calling it a neck-to-neck race? Because even in those swing states, as of now, it shows that barring Nevada, Trump is leading in all.
He is leading in all, but those margins are very, very small. So when you visually look at these maps of the swing states and you see a lot of red on the map, what you have to realize is Trump does very well in rural areas. So most of these states do have a lot of rural areas. So the map looks red. However, enormous amounts of votes come in from the cities. and that's where you see the blue. So that's where it really becomes neck and neck, because the cities tend to vote blue and the rural areas vote red, and it really comes down to who gets the vote out. Is it the rural or is it the cities?
Oh, yeah,
all right.
Glad you broke it down.
Daniel, absolutely. Yes. In fact, you've settled a debate between Shivan and I as well. We've been discussing this all morning. Now, I just wanted to get your 2 cents on taxes as well. When we talk about Harris, she says that she wants to raise taxes on big businesses and Americans making over $400,000 a year. When it comes to Trump, he proposes a number of tax cuts that's worth trillions, supporting a more moderate rise from 23.6 to 28%, compared with his 44%. All of that being said, one, what sort of bearing will that have when it comes to voter sentiments? And secondly, how do you see the markets reacting to these voting results?
Well, you know, because we don't know where it's going to go here, but if we look at what Harris's plan is, generally speaking, she wants to tax more in order to create more revenue for the government and then basically redistribute that wealth, right, to the middle class or lower. And when you look at what Trump is saying, I want to lower taxes in order to stimulate the economy. And therefore, we will get more tax revenues because people are excelling financially. But either way, and this is really important, it comes down to what is the spending plan. Both parties, Republican and Democrat, have traditionally been spending entirely too much, hence why we have such a huge national debt. So that's the key. The United States does not have a tax revenue problem. It has a spending problem.
All right.
Mr. Gertrude, I think pleasure speaking with you. You really break down complicated issues into very simple language for anybody to understand. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the broadcast. That was Daniel Gertrude joining us from New Jersey.
Thank you.